Waybound, a phenomenal conclusion to a great series. Let's talk about it. Wow, I just finished Waybound, the 10th book in the Cradle series written by Wight, and I must say, I was extremely happy with the conclusion of it. For those of you who have not read up to book 9 or even haven't checked the series out in general, feel free to check out my series review on Cradle itself. There I jump into a little bit of the action, but this video is just going to be about the finale. Now, without giving anything away, I gotta say, Wight did a wonderful job wrapping this one up. To give a reminder on the stakes that were laid out at the end of book 9, our main character Lyndon has now pitted himself against the monarchs. The secret is out, and now Cradle, the world, knows that the only reason the Dread Gods are still terrorizing the world is because the monarchs are refusing to ascend. Lyndon has now pitted himself against two foes, the remaining monarchs as well as the rest of the Dread Gods, seeing as he had just killed the Silent King. All in all, Wight definitely did justice to his characters. All of the protagonists were very well wrapped up in this book, so you don't have to worry about that. But at the same time, the battle was not over. Lyndon and his friends Yaren, Mercy, Zeal, as well as some others along the way, are indeed up against some serious foes. Let's jump back outside of Cradle itself, and then we look at the Abaddon and the infighting there. As we saw at the end of book 10, I believe, Athan, otherwise known as Azrael, who was there undercover, basically mentoring the youngsters coming up, has now had to show his hand and fight the Mad King. He is now in a struggle against the Mad King to basically make sure the entire universe doesn't implode, from what I can put together. The infighting between the head Abaddon, the Hound, against Azrael is also something to be aware of. And it's a good parallel between the two, outside of Cradle and inside of Cradle. We get to see Azrael is not only facing the Mad King, but also some of his fellow Abaddon, and Lyndon is facing the Dread Gods, but also some of his former backers, the Monarchs. As we all know in this series, Lyndon can be quite overpowered sometimes, and in this book, he doesn't really change his power level too much. It's actually his friends having to catch back up with him, and they often complain about having to do so. A lot of the focus was on the side characters and their development in this book, which I am not complaining about. And it's actually one of my favorite parts about it. We've gotten to see Lyndon become overpowered, so it was time for his character to almost take a back seat and let the other characters shine. My final thoughts in this spoiler-free portion of the video is Wight is a phenomenal author, and he definitely did justice to this series. You can obviously look forward to the bloopers at the end. They definitely made me smile and chuckle on a few occasions. To be quite candid, I cannot wait to see Wight's next project that he focuses on, because if it's anything like this one, I know for a fact it'll be worth the read. We're going to focus on some characters and the finishing of their arcs. We'll focus on Zeal to start out. There's a lot of parallels between the icons they pick, just in general, when they're ascending to Sage or higher, if they're already Heralds. And Zeal's choice for the shield was very well done. It was layered into his backstory that he wasn't able to protect his sect, and he's kind of had to take a back seat now that Lyndon has definitely taken the wheel. When they met, there was a big power disparity there, and he's just left him in the dust. So the fact that he took the shield to protect his friends, definitely a good choice for the writer. When we come to Mercy, her character arc was beautiful, I have to say. She not only had to choose her friends over her mother, but till the end, she tried to convince her mother to ascend and do the right thing. She is extremely merciful, obviously, but she's not going to let her keep that from doing what needs to be done. It definitely had to be her own hand that took her mother out, or I should say Arrow, and if that didn't happen, she was not going to be able to move forward. But you could say the same thing about her having that last conversation with Malice. It was interesting to see the difference in choice between Malice and Northstrider, how he was convinced to ascend while she was not. And I very much appreciate this. Yes, they were allies of a sort throughout the series against the other monarchs, but at the end of the day, they had their own reasons for staying on this planet, whether it be fear in Northstrider's case, or whether it be a hunger for power in Malice's. And it definitely made sense that she was the one to stay where he was the one that was convinced. Her death near the end of the book definitely propelled Mercy further, and I loved that she got to pick the sign of joy as her icon, whereas Aaron got to pick the icon of death opposed to the icon of swords. We get to see that they're both following in Ethan's footsteps, seeing as he's their mentor, but the two different sides of Ethan. We have Yeren following the side of the Reaper, and Mercy following the happy-go-lucky, joyous side of Ethan, which he was trying to obtain for himself. So I must admit, it was a very beautiful comparison, but that brings us on over to Yeren. When it comes to Yeren, I have to admit, her picking the death icon definitely spoke volumes to her character growing. She got the final goodbye with the Sage of Swords through his echo, and she got to close that chapter. Yes, the other Sage of Swords was pushing her to basically follow his exact path, but she is her own person, and she had to, make her own choices. And that's why she was able to go off on her own and choose the death icon, which I can very much appreciate myself. It definitely spoke to her character, seeing as she's not really one to trifle with, and it gives her much more authority. Finally, we'll come to Lyndon. We got a great conversation, a very brief one at that, between himself and his father at the beginning of the book, where his father is basically worried about his safety, and that's the first time that that's really ever happened. And he's getting to relinquish the reins to his sister, getting her to lead the Twin Star sect. At the end of the book, he was able to not only defeat the Dread Gods and the other monarchs, which I'm sure we all kind of saw coming, but it was a beautiful turn of events when the Grand Lee Elder, who had killed him in the first book, came back 7 years later during the festival, and Lyndon got to challenge him yet again. But at this time, the Lee Grand Master was not prepared for how much Lyndon has evolved. It was a beautiful way to kind of start and end his hero's journey, since they all need to return home at the end of the day to complete that, and he was able to do it in spades. His ascension went very well, and of course, without a doubt, he was going to join his friends as well as Ethan in becoming the new Reapers sect. I think it was justice at the end of the day, seeing as Ethan had left the Abaddon because they weren't allowing him to save these worlds. He was only tasked with destroying them, and between each snippet we got, Mercy, Yeren, or Zeal, how they got the opportunity to save these planets that were being ravaged by the free prisoners by the Mad King, they got to do it in their own specific way, whether that be Yeren going in and killing the boss of one planet, Mercy giving resources to two different sects of another, or Zeal having to do tax paperwork. I thought it was very well done, and it goes to show you that you don't have to wait until a planet's on death's door. If you keep the horse from breaking its legs, you still got a horse. So that's my thoughts at the end of the day about it. Finally, we'll touch on the epilogue. Very happy that Will Wright decided to put this into the story. We get to see that Yeren and Lyndon had a child, and that same child is going to be tested at the age of 7, really rounding things out and coming exactly to where the book series started. Love it when authors add these in, and it kind of puts to bed this series for Will Wright as an author. He's not going to have any what-ifs through the next few years about what could have been or what happened after. He's really able to put this chapter or the series behind him, and it was done masterfully. All in all, loved this book. I want to get y'all's thoughts on it in the comments below, what you thought of it. Try to keep the spoilers down if you can, in case someone else is checking this video out. With that, I do appreciate everyone's time, and I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. Be sure to keep reading.